smarter impact is about going beyond ourselves, our work, and our communities. It's about enabling better choices that make a difference in people's lives. And recognizing that everything is connected. To make a smarter impact, we must be knowledge-led, human-centric, and optimistic. Ready to make a smarter impact? Talk with our team or visit our website to learn how.
Thank you all for joining us today in the session, Planning for the Future of Educational Technology. Let me introduce myself and the other presenters. I'm Mike Dannenberg. I'm the Associate Principal and Director of New and Emerging Technologies for Vantage Technology Consulting Group. With over 25 years of project management and system engineering experience, I help institutions to create learning environments that are both engaging and secure for the students, academics, the staff, and the public. I love educational planning process as well as the design and implementation stages to see the successful projects come to life and the staff and students benefit. I have worked on many award-winning facilities and institutions with many great teams and thrive on exploring how technology can best enable new teaching pedagogies and research and studies. Next, I want to introduce Devin Mitchell. She's the Vice President and the Director of Educational Design in the Los Angeles studio of Canon Design. As an industry leader and innovator in the planning and design of K-12 learning environments, Devin brings a broad range of experience and understanding of the challenges facing school districts with the planning, design, and execution of future-ready environments. Partnering with numerous public and private school clients to achieve high-value results, she has received over 20 educational awards for innovation in the execution and design of next-generational learning spaces. And finally, we have Kerry Upton. He's the Chief Operations Officer for Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District. Kerry oversees the facility improvements, maintenance and operations, and facility use. Through his journey to supervising school facilities might seem unconventional, his extensive experiences have led to a passion for engaging learning environments. Kerry was a lecturer at University of Maryland, College Park, where he co-directed the whole actor research project that combined the arts, humanities, social sciences, and physical sciences to develop new practices and understandings of human learning and teaching acting. Kerry's writing can be found on his blog, Creating the 21st Century, the address of which is located on the last slide of this presentation. In today's discussion, our agenda is going to include the education technology planning, the Project Genesis, which is the foundation to create a district-wide strategy for educational technology that creates a plan for the next generation facility support and infrastructure. We're going to talk about the stakeholders, the academics, administrative, IT, safety, staff that are going to be involved and they're instrumental in making sure that we have the right people to plan. And we're going to talk about the goals and vision. The process, we're going to talk about the strategic roadmaps, pilot projects, and the collaborative visioning and incremental deployment of those. And then the questions and answers at the end, where you'll be able to, throughout the process, feed questions into the queue. And at the end, we will go through and review those. I will now hand this over to talk about the Project Genesis to Devin.
Thank you. So as we start the presentation, we want to walk you through the methodology that we use for determining a district's technology future. Some common factors that we want to consider at a project's inception first include understanding the needs of the district and what are the driving factors for change. So two common ways that our technology projects evolve are either through the facilities master planning process, where a district is either replacing or modernizing aging facilities, or are designing for growth, or where a district has seen significant change in teaching and learning and the needs to rethink their learning environments. The second way is when a district sometimes receives funding to update schools for 21st century learning. And this can be reprogramming classrooms, creating STEM labs, specialized learning spaces, career tech spaces, spaces for dual and concurrent enrollment, as well as maker labs and hub spaces, and configuring spaces for groups of various sizes to learn. In both cases, we're looking at existing conditions. We're assessing and understanding the limitations of your existing infrastructure. So a team will be deployed very early in the process to understand how technology is used on each of your campuses and begin to assess the basic level of infrastructure within your district as a baseline for moving forward with understanding new technology needs. We also want to begin to understand the needs at your various education levels. We want to hear from educators and leadership where instructional teaching and learning are heading. While we do that, we want to start early with the team to educate your core team members on what types of technology are available, share what has worked and not worked for other districts. We want to be able to discuss flexibility in technology and infrastructure so that systems function well over time. And if needed, provide some hands-on exposure for your teaching staff and for your leadership to understand what is available to you in terms of new and future technology. As part of the understanding that how we deploy technology and infrastructure, we want to share a case study with you from Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District, who is currently in the process of updating their learning environments and technology across a large number of campuses. Carrie, I'll let you discuss that.
Thank you, Devin. So Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District, we're an interesting district in that we are two coastal cities, Santa Monica and Malibu. We're actually separated, though we are connected by the ocean, which is an interesting sort of connection of how we actually are the same district. We cross about 26, 27 miles. We have around 10,000 students at 10 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 3 high schools, and an adult learning center, and also an alternate high school. So our district, and one of the things that also gets lost in our district being in Santa Monica is people, think, oh, this is a very wealthy district. But one of the things is our students, we still have 4 or 5 of our schools that are Title I schools. And we do have a wide, diverse range of students of different types. So really trying to fit those. Where we started this was a question, we know that education is changing. And my superintendent Ben Drawdy has said, if you're still teaching like you taught 20 years ago, you're losing the kids of today. And so we were doing a sort of a change and a shift of our entire educational process, and we needed our facilities to catch up with that. A lot of our schools are 80 years old, and those that aren't 80 or 60 years old haven't done as much significant work on those, to sort of bring them up. So we started with sort of developing some sort of bringing up the schools and started developing our educational tech. But this process was very important because we wanted to take how we are teaching and how our ed services group was going and connect that with how our facilities supported that. So that began with a education specification process that we worked with Devin, we worked with Michael on, trying to really take a look at how we are teaching and how our facilities would support that. So I turn it back over, I believe, to Michael, who'll take us to the next step.
Actually, I think, Devin, you wanted to continue on with something.
Sure. So as Carrie mentioned, we worked on developing a concept as a comprehensive team for the district. And we began with extensive conversations about where education is headed in the district. And we worked extensively as a cohesive team of educators, IT, facilities, leadership, and the community to ultimately define a new integrated learning progression model for the district that uses instruction, curriculum, and the built environment to achieve the district's goals. And some of the goals that were put forward as part of this project include creating dynamic non-classroom environments that facilitate individual learning and group learning, all classroom instruction that's flexible and easily adaptable. And this requires care and consideration for the types of technology as well as the placement of technology within environments. For example, learning environments that are highly collaborative and interactive. For Santa Monica Malibu, in the Early Learners program in the district, they use a rotational learning model where students rotate about a classroom to a variety of learning environments. So clearly defining where fixed technology occurs, where handheld technology and four-wall instruction becomes available and accessible to all, and where we placed these types of technologies in the classroom were critical in how the spaces ultimately function. Similarly, understanding and defining technology and infrastructure for all of the specialized learning that occurs on the campuses was very important. Spaces like STEM labs, maker labs, career tech, those all must be understood in collaboration with the individuals who are administering these programs so that we carefully craft how the spaces work, how the instructional walls are configured, where technology hubs are located, as well as how fixed and movable technology works in the space. This is critical to how we plan the space, how we equip the space with technology, and how we provide power to facilitate where technology centers in the classroom occur.
Okay, we're going to jump into the stakeholders and goals, where we have different perspectives and needs. And we're going to start at the top down. We're going to look at the district-wide first. And when we're doing that, we're looking at the facility aspects of it. We're looking at the data center at the district location to make sure that services that are coming into it are redundant. Is it an aging space that is not going to support the programs that we want to move forward on the campus and classroom, as well as the district-wide level, including campus safety, paging and bell systems, communication systems. We want to make sure we have the ability to support those systems. And the phone system, is the phone system outdated and it's limiting communications and not interfacing properly to the classroom announcement system, where there's new benefits that are out there that we can capitalize on? How do the systems scale to accommodate the students as well as the parents off campus, including the instructional portal, the Chromebook distribution, access to internet for the students? We want to look at that in a holistic manner. This is the backbone of all of the educational systems, is the main communication system. So we really want to make sure we get that right from the district location and perspective. From the school site, we're going to look at campus-wide wireless networking for the staff and the students to be able to access the internet when they need it. And this is to make sure that not only the students and the staff on the academic side, but the facilities and safety. Can the campus safety group access video surveillance footage on the campus over the network and on the Wi-Fi system to make sure that they have the ability and have the capability of reviewing information real time? And I'm looking at the classroom system and understanding that not all students learn the same. They don't all have access to technology. We know that the students are all working with technology in their everyday lives, and we need to make sure that we're planning for them to be able to accommodate that in the future, because that's where we're growing. But how does this work into the planning and to the pilots on the educational side? Not all instructors are receptive to new technology and new learning modalities. So how does this get accounted for in the program? So we want to make sure that we're taking that into consideration when we're planning for that, and we're looking at the vision to make sure that we're not leaving people behind and that we're accounting for everybody in the plan. As the process, we're going to start looking at running through this together, the visioning. We're going to start with and looking at the stakeholders, advisors that need to be part of that process. And then we're going to look at the vision. Where does the institution want to end up? Where is the district goal for the next 10 years, for example? And then we're going to start planning and creating those documents to make sure that that vision is taken into consideration as a strategy, making sure that the educational specifications have the input that's needed so planners can go and use that for effectively looking at any new buildings that are being deployed or modernizations that need to occur on a campus. And then we're going to look at the standards. If the campus and district have standards, we're going to look at that, make sure that they're updated. If they don't, we're going to develop a process to make sure that that information is collected and documented in a useful method that can be handed over to planners to make sure that there's a consistency instilled in all building projects across the district, whether it's on the campus and they have their own particular unique preferences that are based around the architecture on the campus, or if this is a district-wide, making sure that there is compliancy to make sure that the instructors, as they move between institutions, can have an understanding of how things work, how the IT and facility and maintenance staff can be able to support things that are in place on an ongoing basis. So they're not having a lot of disparate solutions out there. And then looking at the budgeting and funding to help facilitate all of that. So I'm going to hand the visioning process over to Devin, if you want to talk a little bit about those strategies.
Great. So early in the process, it's important that we develop a team that will see the planning process through. And because technology is such an important component of the curriculum, the instruction, and the built environment, it's important that the team include a variety of team members. And first, we want to include members from the district facilities team. Those individuals who have comprehensive knowledge of the district facilities, the work that has been done over time to the technology and infrastructure systems, and who understand what technology has been deployed in the district, the age of the technology, how it works, and any known deficiencies. Secondly, we want to include the district IT team. So those individuals who are responsible for the technology plan for the district, those who roll out new technology for the district. It's important to hear from these individuals how technology currently works and understand their goals and vision, as well as what methodologies are being used within the district to educate the educators, to make technology approachable and able to be utilized seamlessly across the district by all educators. If there are challenges in how technology is currently being used, we want to hear from IT directly, the type of feedback they receive from their educational staff, so that we can better understand the types of technology to recommend and to ensure that future technology that is deployed can be used by all educators, and that if they require technology training, that we include that as part of the plan. Third, we want to include instructional leadership. We want to understand how learning environments may be changing, how learning occurs in the classroom, and create customized technology solutions that address the specific learning modalities that are being employed in your learning environments. And finally, we want to include outside experts in the conversation. And these include technology and experts, as well as architects and engineers, individuals who are able to assess your existing facilities and educate you on technologies that are available and to recommend approaches that will work in the long term. This allows the team early on to conduct facility assessments, to begin to establish cost estimates, to bring the existing facilities up to current standards, while the team also begins to discuss new technology needs. Carrie, perhaps you can share with us some of the visioning and considerations that Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District experienced in your planning process.
Yes, Devin, thank you. So what was really essential for us, to particularly in working through the education specifications, was a very good partnership between the facilities folks and the educators, specifically our education department, and trying to really get us into the same place where we were talking about it. Because an ed spec, when it's successful, I mean, there's the ed specs you do that sort of counts what do you need in a classroom that's very specific. But we were doing something that was a little bit more over the whole, a little more aspirational of where we were going. And what was really important was to hear how the ed services folks were guiding, learning, the professional development that they'd already been doing with our teachers, where teachers were going, and then how the facilities could go in and support that. I mean, our teachers are really great often at hacking their spaces to make them work. And yet, wouldn't it be great if we actually gave them the appropriate tools, both in the facilities and the technology that actually supports the way that are teaching and the way that learning is occurring and needs to occur at this time. So we spent a good bit of time in that conversation of where we are and where we're going and trying to anticipate how to get there and how to move our facilities in that direction. That was very much part of the discussion, and we brought in teachers, principals, sometimes even students educating to ask the question, where are we going, and trying to make sure we're moving in that direction.
Devin, do you want to continue on the ed specs and kind of elaborate a little bit more?
Great, thank you. So the educational specifications address the physical documentation of spatial needs, adjacencies, finishes, infrastructure, technology, as well as furniture, fixtures, and equipment that are needed to make each room type functional. And first, we want to understand the curriculum goals and the education model that will shape each of those spaces. And it's important to note that this process needs to be led by the educators, the people that use the spaces, the people that are responsible for the curriculum and the instruction, that they provide the input that we can use to define these spaces. This allows us to develop a program criteria for each space type. It both defines how the space will be used as well as how it will be equipped. This includes floor plans, elevations, adjacency diagrams, furniture and equipment needs, technology needs for each room type. And we do this in kind of 3 different groups, one for elementary, one for middle, and one for high school. And we recommend that you customize this around the educators in each of those groups. The educational specifications, they become a roadmap of sorts for how modernization and new construction will be defined and rolled out. And the intent of this is to provide equity and parity across all your school campuses so that all schools at each grade level are equally equipped. And in addition to that, the educational specification really should be thought of as a living document. It's a common resource that you use, that you can add to, refine, and modify your planning as learning evolves. So it should be an active tool for you as you move forward in your planning process. Michael, can you speak to some of the district standards and why this is an important part of the process of looking at the ed specs?
Yes, thank you, Devin. So when we look at the district standards, and I also throw in guidelines in here as well, because we use this to make sure that there's consistency between the campus projects. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at what exists on the campus, if they have standards and preferences. We like to collect that information, and what we want to do then is turn that into either update that document or turn this into a document that can be detailed enough that has specific requirements such as manufacturer preferences, mounting diagrams, product data sheets, and other information that's critical to making sure that there's consistency in how they're deployed between a variety of disparate building projects and different designers that are on any one campus at a time. And so we're looking at making sure that we're also including things like outline specs, making sure that that has information that's guiding the installers that'll be taking this and having process of how they need specific and unique aspects of how they want to deploy that in the campus. and making sure that there's some consistency there as well. So any of the designers are taking that information and then can own it, make it their own, but have the roots still comply with the campus preferences. As Devin noted for the EdSpecs, this document should be a living document as well. As the evolution of technology grows and the campus continues to refine their vision and new technologies emerge, we want to make sure that these preferences are documented in the guidelines and standards package. That continues to be refined and modified. So the latest technologies and the latest methods are being used in there to accommodate and be provided to the planners and builders. And having the standards in the classroom is important for operation because it makes it easier for the instructors. We have consistency. An instructor walks from one classroom to another. It's similar and it's going to operate the same way. It might have some flexibility. We want to make sure that we're looking to accommodate latitude in the space to have some evolution in the classroom, but that the operational system architecture in there is consistent. And this also makes sure when we have equipment and in there that's consistent, that the maintenance and support and IT staff that are going in there and working with this equipment to make sure that it's continually in operation 100% for the instructors, that there's consistency so they know they have spares, they can go in there and make sure that it's easy for them to work with because they know it. And it's the same across all of the campuses and classrooms under their purview. So the next part is the implementation process. Carrie, do you want to start and talk a little bit about the facility process for the pilot projects that you were working on for the?
Yes, I wanted just to throw in something about facility master planning and the campus plans, and that we're in that process right now at our elementaries and middle schools. We're taking a deep look at each of our campuses. We're looking at how they currently work, how they're structured, how they're functioning from a classroom level to a school level. And then we're anticipating where we might go out for the next 30 years with campus plans and what we might do to improve. And that's really done in alignment, looking at the EdSpecs, looking at the work that we've done on our information technology, sort of asking the question of how do we actually continue to adapt and move our facilities? And we're coming up with some first projects based on the funding that we have. Of course, there's never enough funding to do all that we want to do, but really trying to take a real strategic look of what's going to impact education. So all of this work that we've done, and one I would suggest you all do to prepare before the planning, it really helps to get you to a place that sort of takes you to that next space. So you really can take it all and really make really great strategic decisions. Another thing I want to talk about is just on the overall question, one thing we've spent a lot of energy and time in looking at is just upgrading our systems and a lot of our support systems. And a lot of those have been very much around safety and security. So along with, the telephone systems, but other low voltage systems we've really had to focus on are cameras and bringing cameras back. For a while, we didn't want cameras and our community didn't want them. Now they ask, why don't we have them? So we're bringing cameras back in, but also updating our 30-year-old intrusion alarms or updating our bell, clock, and PA systems, which actually are great safety tools also to communicate in situations of a lockdown. So bringing these systems up and bringing these in is one part of it. And the way that we've been doing it is doing in pilot projects. So we do a lot of research. We study what is the best technology out there. We've been working with Vantage on this at a number of our schools. And then we pick a school and we do a pilot project there where we really can implement it, put it in, kick the tires, see how it works. Because no matter how much you look at these systems, you don't really get them until you have them in your hands, you have them in place. So we put those in to sort of continue to build out our safety models. And so Vantage has been working with us very well to sort of get that chance, sort of kick the tires, figure out what works. And then from there, we've been able to expand it out to the rest of the district much more easily and quickly. And that's been very successful. Michael?
Thank you, Carrie. And so just going through and as you start to plan for the pilot project, you start to develop some plans, the location, what campus, what building you want to do this pilot project on. This could be a classroom as well, you know, looking at a particular learning system that you want to test out. In Carrie's example, it was more of a campus-wide safety solution. We want to understand the existing conditions and how these are going to be impacting later on as well as part of the project. Looking at some of these things, some of you are looking at the pilot project and you're saying, oh, there's other things that have to be implemented and updated. I have a client who has an aging data center and they wanted to do something like Carrie was doing with updating the classroom technologies and the campus safety systems, but couldn't do that because of their central data center. So you have to look at that because that becomes a separate project that has to be dealt with in the same time or before the other pilot project. And that has to be looked at as part of the whole sequencing process. Then when you're done with the this pilot project, you go back and look at the results. Look back and see how we changing things to accommodate on the other, as Carrie noted, so we can push it out to other areas, other campuses. So we look at how the scale of this goes, including a major rollout with also the roles. We have a group of people that may have been able to roll it out on a smaller scale project, but do we need to expand and bring in other staff that are more geared and ready to support a much larger deployment after the pilot project has been proven? And so creating a strategy and a schedule for that deployment. And then looking at that sequence of operations, as I mentioned, looking at the relocation of programs and assets that need to be, you know, the redistribution of classrooms and staff, and creating a budget and that can scale across the district, and making sure you're familiar with the costs before you start going into that. And as we start jumping into the future modernizations, that's where we start looking at the balance. We start looking at the infrastructure that's in here. How does that impact and coincides with the strategy? We look at the systems and making sure that the infrastructure is going to be able to be designed to support multi-generations of technology systems that are going to go in there. Obviously, technology has a relatively short lifespan. There's always something new at the gate ready to be looked at. So we need to make sure that our back-end infrastructure can support that. That includes the data center. It needs to make sure that our strategy and vision going forward take that into consideration for some of these other learning systems that are out there and different modalities that we want to think about in the future that we might not be ready, but we're looking for to support a flexible architecture to accommodate the future of that. Once the needs are identified and a plan formulated for this rollout, looking at all the different facets that impact that schedule. So we're going to look at the new services, communications, electrical, looking at any infrastructure modifications that need to occur, working around the schedules as we mentioned earlier, and then making sure that we have support for business continuity in a case the system goes down. Are we planning for redundancy in incoming services to the campus and to the district for their data center and head-end systems? Making sure that we have backup for critical systems. emergency radio support in existing buildings that do not accommodate cellular service within it to support fire and life radio systems. And then Devin, I think, had noted earlier about training the trainer, making sure that we're looking at this when we do deploy a technology, for example, in a classroom. We want to make sure that we're training them, not just on the general operations of the use of that classroom technology, but also how they might use it in their curriculum. I've done this before where I go in and I have the vendor that's put the system in, train them on how to use it. And so they know how to turn the system on, how to do the different things. Then I go in and I like to train the educators on how to integrate it into their technology. How can we use these new unique tools as a new educational element to their curriculum and how they instruct? So they understand, oh yeah, I can use wireless collaboration in this way. I don't have to just do it. They just told me how to do it, but let's see, I can use it in a variety of different ways to really enhance the learning experience. And then that's where you're going to find the champions, the people that really latch onto this and understand in a classroom space how to use that technology to the benefit of the students and to get the results. You're going to go back and look at that and encourage those champions. These are going to be the people that are going to propagate this through the system, through their successes. Now, of course, not all instructors are going to be able to teach the same way. Not all of them have the same grasp on technology, and that's understood. But making sure that you are helping encourage and fostering an environment where this can help move instruction forward in a closer toward your vision. What's coming next? When we start looking at the blending in classroom and virtual instruction, COVID has shown that schools can be fairly successful in supporting remote instruction. On how can we leverage this better? As we were already looking, many schools were already looking at deploying an element of remote and virtual classroom experience to reach out to other audiences and to be able to support and bring in guest presenters. Well, how do we do that better? How do we make sure that we have the resources, the data center storage capacity to record systems, the various pieces of hardware that we need to put in the classroom to make sure that we're getting the best experience and that we're planning appropriate for it. And then bringing in and being able to support virtual guest presenters or just joining two classrooms, whether they're remotely distant from another state or within the same building, being able to tie those together. There's some really great and powerful tools that we can leverage based on this technology, and then making sure that we're planning for others that are unknown in the future. So from there, I'm going to jump back into COVID. And Carrie, I wanted to see if you might kind of review your experience on how COVID impacted you guys and how you're moving forward with it.
Absolutely. I'd love to jump into that. But I just want to say one of the things that we've actually found very successful on the implementation on technology, new furniture, is teachers on special assignment. We've taken a few of our TOSAs, as we call them, and they've been trained to use the technology. They've been trained to understand sort of new ways of teaching, and having them work with the teachers and teaching the teachers and working with the teachers in depth has really made a big transition. So I'd really recommend that as a way. As I said earlier, we knew education was changing, but we didn't imagine it was going to change as quickly as it has in the last 6 to 8 months. As with many school districts, come March, we suddenly went from one way of teaching to a complete other way of teaching overnight. And we were transitioned right to distance learning. And our district, admittedly, we were challenged by that. We were not ready for it. And, just getting devices, making sure all kids had a device, had Wi-Fi, because a lot of our students, didn't even have Wi-Fi at home. So we had to make sure that they had the ability to get on, to be participating, getting our teachers set up. And so it was a lot of work to get us suddenly there. And I'm not even sure, and we actually admit we didn't really do a great job in the spring engaging all of our students. But we spent a lot of time this summer, and we're in distance learning still. Our county in LA is not ready to go back, so we're still in distance learning. But I feel like we've accomplished a lot of those roles, and figuring out how to get it done, and blending really symmetrical and asymmetrical learning, so that when they're with the teachers, something's really happening, but they also have things they can do outside of being connected with the teacher. But what I'm really excited about is this is our mid-COVID experience. We had our pre-COVID and now we're in the mid-COVID, but I'm really excited about where post-COVID goes, because we've torn down a lot of barriers and a lot of questions on how to use technology and how to change learning because of this, we are forced to. And so it's exciting to see what will come out and what school will look like after this, and how we'll be able to engage the students in multiple forms of learning. And it's exciting in some ways that we are forced to get here, but where we're going is going to be a wonderful challenge.
Devin, do you want to discuss anything around the space and architecture?
Sure. So as educators and facility team members, you are all well versed at this point on social distancing requirements, as well as the variety of hybrid learning solutions that are being deployed at schools as we start to move back into the classroom. But as we think about the future of technology, and whether we're thinking about COVID or we're thinking about future learning and how future learning environments may exist, there are certain considerations that stand out that take both of these things into consideration and allow us to continue to grow and change our facilities. And they're pertinent to our physical environment. And that's that the future of learning really will occur everywhere in our schools. And our schools have become less and less defined in terms of social spaces versus academic spaces. And what were once considered defined athletic areas and academic zones, now we must begin to reconsider these spaces. Spaces like outdoor areas, multi-purpose spaces, libraries, all of these areas now start to be thought of as active learning spaces in a school, where we think about small group, individual and large group collaboration. And they must become multifunctional. They must become harder working spaces. And regardless of if it's being instituted because of COVID or because of how learning is changing, they all will require robust technology solutions that may not have existed in those spaces before. And so there is a larger reconsideration for how we think about some of our shared areas on campus that maybe we weren't thinking about before in terms of learning areas, that has resulted also as part of this experience with COVID.
Thank you, Devin. I just wanted to wrap up this section talking about the emergency response teaching. We've gone through this. The school district, Santa Monica, has gone through this, and a lot of others have gone through this. And now we can look at this and say, okay, going back to standards, going back to policy, now let's step back and go, how can we work more with the instructors to help them continuing to work with this medium and make the best of it while we're in it, and helpfully planning and setting some groundwork for the future. So a lot of the things I like to talk about and end with is etiquette, making sure that the instructors are taught some general rules and ideas and concepts on how to conduct themselves in the classroom and as needed. Because they are being recorded, and a lot of times they're also live sessions, and they're representing the school district. So making sure that there's some understanding between the district and instructors on how to do that, and making sure that, again, as we talked about with the devices, and making sure that we're looking at a long-term plan for this to accommodate the technology on a supportable system, and making sure that we're working with the right tools. And giving some instructors some professional development and guidance on how to be able to support other learning styles. You know, in a lab, how do we work with the document cameras and share those to the students on a remote side so they can work with it? How do we work with testing? Testing is always a challenge. So how are we able to test on a virtual setting? So coming up with some other criteria and refine those based on what we already know. So that I would kind of end that and jump into the conclusions. So we just want to make sure that it's important to have a clear vision and a plan with stakeholder buy-in to help you move successfully into the future. And we just want to thank you so much for joining us for this session today. We hope that you have picked up some good tips and pointers that we found from going through this process. Our contact information is on the slide below, which I didn't advance. And so you can reach out to us if you have any other further questions. And we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much and have a great day.